All right, well, I've gotten into this a little bit more than I planned. Story of my life. Welcome to the channel. Um, Ended up throwing these things through the ultrasonic cleaner, and when they came out, I decided to sandblast most of them. They were pretty rough. So not surface texture rough. I just mean there was rust on areas, and this was definitely in a damp garage or basement for a number of years. But I didn't find any issues with the castings themselves, so that's good news. So yeah, these things need to get cleaned, and then they're going to be painted, obviously. And I thought about going sort of with the original sort of silver and gray paint scheme, and then I realized no one's really going to be looking underneath there, and I'm not really one for keeping things absolutely original anyway, so I think I'll just go with the same machinery gray that the cabinet is, and that should be good. Only thing that's been holding me up is it's, well, minus 30 outside, and if you don't have a self-contained paint booth, trying to keep anything warm while painting when it's minus 30 outside is, well, it's this, because your heaters are running flat out. But it's also just gets to a point where it's futile, you just can't. And inevitably what happens is something like this. I forgot to bring my gloves in from outside, and, well, I can peel them up without them cracking, so that's good. But, yeah. Little things like that. Or solvent. You know, your solvent stops flashing off at like minus 25 or so. So just things slowing me down a little bit on a project that's a fun project. So there's an interesting tale here that to be told about somebody abusing this thing with a pair of pliers. This is what one of these tensioning knobs or tightening knobs should look like after 30 years of use or so. Quite good. After all, this is simply a hand tightened thread, and we have hardened steel points. Well, I think they're hard. I haven't checked that, but I imagine they're somewhat hardened, and they're going up against brass plugs. But then you get to this one, which, as well as you can see, it's gnarly. And the threads are also pretty well toast. So I'm going to try to repair this. If I cannot rethread this, I doubt that I will be able to press this die cast knob off of this shaft to build a new shaft without wrecking this die cast knob. I'm pretty sure that's just going to crack before this will press out. So I might have to try to source another one of these, a good used one. Sorry about the heater noise, but you can only have it off for so long. So you can see this is the other part of the tale, of course. Here's a set of slugs that, quite honestly, they're not terrible, but somebody has reefed on this too hard. You know, there should be just little shallow waves on here. Now, I'm sorry, I haven't cleaned these guys up yet, so it might be hard to see. But you can see, generally speaking, it's like little scallops of like petals on a flower. But when you get to over here, when you get the pliers involved, you start cutting in some pretty significant grooves into these brass slugs. And once that happens, the edges push up. And so this slug now no longer rotates, which means every time you run that thing in, it's no longer rotating to a new position, just sort of somewhat randomly. It gets stuck in there, and it gets worse and worse. And, well, you know, you see things like this, and I do not know. I have not seen ones that bad before, but hey, there's a first for everything. So I might have to make at least one new pair of those. I was trying to source those online, didn't find anything, but we'll see. Might make a couple phone calls, see if anybody I know's got some. So little things like that, you know, that's something to keep an eye on for. Of course, how these work is really simple, right? These two slugs, they sit inside of the shaft, whether it be your tilt shaft or your raise and lower shaft. And then when you thread this knob through, it wedges these slugs apart, right? Let's pull this shaft here as an example, right? The end of this shaft is threaded. Well, if you could see in there, you'd see it's threaded. And these slugs, they sit in there, in here with the flat sides out. And wow, we can just do that, can't we? Ah, this is the boogered one. This is the boogered one. Which is bad news. I mean I have to rethread this shaft too. But, anyways, if this was not the boogered one, where's our non-boogered one? This guy. Okay, now we've contacted it. So now you see these slugs are pressed outwards. And that's bottoming them out, but there's a lot of life in these that they almost don't wear at all, just pressing on the collars or where the shaft sits into. So they're not really something that need to wear out unless you're going to abuse your saw, which maybe had I seen this, I may not have taken this saw after all. We'll see. Who knows? Anyways, that is the story of some wonderful engineering that hardly ever has any issues. By the way, you can put a little bit of grease or heavy oil on here. It'll help reduce the wear in here. But you can see how these threads here, they're just totally squared over. Yeah, people. Alright, so I just chased the threads out here of the two shafts. Before I went much further on this project, I wanted to make sure these shafts weren't messed up. And they actually came out pretty good. They cleaned up good in both shafts. So I don't think too much real damage happened. I chased this thread here with a die. It's a 7/16 by 20 thread, or 7/16 National Fine. And it lifted them and moved them back some. But I'm not so sure that this guy is going to come out. I'm going to run it anyways. I'll run a die over it, we'll see. But I think this one might be toast. We'll see how this goes. This can go sideways if the thread's too buggered up and it starts to cut a thread that is out of sync with the rest of the threads. But then again, this thing's kind of toast maybe anyways, right? So yeah, I mean, yes, it's cutting them, but no, this is not salvageable. Let's see if I can demonstrate. So there's this much room down here where the threads are good, that much play. And up here, probably 3 times the amount of play. And it's just because these threads got rolled over so bad, they got so mangled that just running a die over it isn't sort of reforming them, it's just cutting right through them. So we will find a new set of those, I guess. And then the other piece of concern is this little pointer bracket device. This is where the degree pointer interfaces with, but also the shaft rolls right through here, the raised lower shaft. And there's a fair bit of wear that's happening in a groove through here. And the reason for that wear is that's where those little brass buttons press against to lock that raise and lower shaft. And I'm not sure if I can repair that or if I will have to build a new part. I hope I don't have to build a part because it's a little bit, well, there's a little bit going on here. But I got an idea. I'm going to see if I can source a sleeve that is just slightly oversized, and then ream this out just, maybe a 30-second or so. Put in a hardened sleeve. I'm not sure if I can get one, but if I can, we'll give it a try. We'll see. If not, then I will have to make another part, which we can do again. But a couple parts that I'm not looking forward to if I have to make this part. I can fabricate these pieces separately. I can weld these two end caps on, and we can build this sort of collar piece here on the lathe, no problem. But these two bores, along with the counter bore up here, that's a pretty long run to do when you don't have precision machinery. And I don't think I would get lucky enough doing that simply on a drill press. I don't know how I could mock that up in a lathe, and I don't have a milling machine. So that kind of makes me want to try and save this. But you can see how thin our walls are here. And, we probably only have a 64th to a 32nd on each side there anyways to bore this out and maybe put a hardened sleeve in. If that doesn't work, well, we'll figure something out. And if need be, I might even just source, see if I can find a used one of these that's in decent shape. Yeah, so that's that guy. Lastly, as you can see, I've been painting. Sandblasted a bunch of stuff. Cleaned up really quite well. Going through the blast cabinet. So just giving it a coat here of this machine gray, which is pretty close to the Delta Rockwell gray. And yeah, I'm sure they'll make it run no different at all. But it'll look nice. Anyways, I'll update you guys next as soon as there's something else here to show. And for now, that's it. Alright guys, stay warm up there. Talk to you later.